The crack of his palm against my cheek was so loud it made the silverware rattle. For a second, I honestly thought one of the decorative plates on the wall had fallen. But no, every eye in the room was on me. My face burned as if someone had pressed a hot iron against it. Instinctively, my right hand flew to the sting. I could feel the outline of his fingers starting to swell on my skin. The roast beef sat on the center of the dining table, the steam curling lazily upward, completely forgotten. 12 people, family, in-laws, a couple of cousins who'd driven down from Ohio froze mid-bite, mid-chew, mid-sip. Some looked shocked, others not so much, and at least 3 wore an expression that made my stomach twist smug satisfaction. My husband, Brandon, stood over me with his hands still slightly raised, chest rising and falling with the kind of rage that doesn't just fade. His face was crimson, jaw locked. "Don't you ever embarrass me in front of my family again," he snarled. His voice wasn't loud. No, it was the low, venomous tone that promised more pain later. From her seat at the far end, his mother, Phyllis, smirked. She didn't even pretend to hide it. His younger brother, Rick, let out a quiet, knowing chuckle as he reached for his beer. His sister, Lacey, rolled her eyes like I was the one being dramatic. And then, from the corner by the big bay window, came a voice I hadn't expected to hear. "Daddy." The room turned in unison, like a scene from some courtroom drama. My 9-year-old daughter, Harper, stood clutching her iPad against her chest, her knuckles white. Her eyes, my eyes, were fixed on Brandon in a way that made even him blink. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. Her voice was steady, no quiver, no tears, just certainty. "What did you just say to me?" Brandon's tone shifted, not softer, not kinder, just caught off guard. "You shouldn't have hit Mom," Harper repeated, "because now Grandpa is going to see." The color drained from Brandon's face so fast, I thought for a moment he might pass out. Around the table, I saw confusion flicker into something else. Was that fear? "What are you talking about?" Brandon demanded, his voice catching just enough to betray him. Harper tilted her head, studying him the way you study a snake you're not sure is dead yet. "I've been recording you. Everything. For weeks. And I sent it to Grandpa this morning." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Phyllis's smirk faltered. Rick stopped chewing. Lacey's wineglass hovered in midair. But my heart slammed against my ribs. I'd had no idea she was doing that. 3 hours earlier, I was in the kitchen, basting the roast beef, while my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the baster. The bruise along my ribs from last week's lesson throbbed with every movement. I didn't dare wince, not with the noise Brandon was making upstairs. I learned a long time ago, any visible sign of pain was an invitation. "Renee!" His voice boomed from the master bedroom. "Where the hell is my cufflink set?" In the top drawer, right side, I called back, keeping my tone light, casual, like we were just an average married couple in a Hallmark movie. Harper sat at the counter, a math worksheet in front of her. She wasn't writing, she was watching me. She always watched now. At 9 years old, she had the kind of sharp intuition that made me both proud and terrified. She could read Brandon's mood before he even opened the front door at night. She knew the sound of his "I'm in control" voice versus his "I'm about to explode" voice. "You okay, Mom?" she asked softly, still not looking down at her paper. I smiled. A practiced, fake smile I'd perfected over the last 3 years. "I'm fine, sweet pea." She set her pencil down. "No, you're not." Before I could respond, Brandon's footsteps thundered down the stairs. He entered the kitchen like a storm front, sharp and sudden. "This place looks like a damn mess," he announced, scanning the countertops that were, in reality, spotless. "My mother's gonna be here in an hour. You planning to clean up at all?" "I've been cooking," I started, but he cut me off with a look. Then he noticed Harper staring at him. "What?" he barked. "I'm doing homework," Harper said evenly. "Well, do it upstairs. Go." She slid off the stool, but as she passed me, she squeezed my hand, a tiny squeeze that nearly undid me. At the kitchen doorway, she turned back. "Be nice to Mom," she said. Brandon's jaw tightened. Excuse me? She's been cooking all day even though she's tired, so just be nice. The audacity of my 9-year-old left him momentarily speechless, but I saw it, the dangerous flash in his eyes, the way his hand flexed at his side. Harper, I said quickly. Upstairs. She nodded, but her gaze stayed locked on him for a beat too long before she disappeared. That kid is getting way too mouthy, Brandon muttered, turning back to me. You're raising her to disrespect me. She's just protective, I said, choosing my words like landmines. She doesn't like seeing... I stopped myself, but it was too late. Seeing what? His voice dropped to that low, controlled growl that meant danger. You telling her stories about us, Renee? Making me out to be some kind of monster? The doorbell rang, saving me from having to answer. Brandon straightened his tie, and in a blink, he was the charming, all-American husband again. Showtime, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Remember, we're the perfect family. Brandon's family arrived like a parade of well-dressed critics. Phyllis swept in first, eyes scanning for imperfections. Renee, dear, she said in that sugary tone that always felt like poison. New curtains? Oh, how quaint. Rick and his girlfriend, Mandy, followed, both wearing smug expressions that said they'd been gossiping about me in the car. Then Lacey breezed in, air-kissing me, before whispering, You look tired, not sleeping well? I forced a smile. Harper, standing quietly in the living room, clutched her iPad close, eyes tracking every interaction. By the time we sat down to dinner, the insults had gone from subtle to surgical. She's always been so simple, Phyllis said, slicing into her roast. Not much education, you know. Brandon really married down, but he's such a good man for taking care of her. Brandon didn't contradict her. When Renee tried that online business thing, what was it? Lacey chimed in. Brandon had to put his foot down. She was getting ideas. What actually happened, I'd been offered a remote job with good pay, and Brandon deleted the acceptance email before I could reply. I kept smiling, kept pouring wine, pretended I couldn't feel Harper's eyes on me. The breaking point came when Rick leaned back and smirked. You're lucky, Brandon. Some wives actually have ambition. Yours is happy just existing. Even Mandy looked uncomfortable. It's nice, Phyllis said, seeing a woman who knows her place. That was it. My place, I said, voice low, is to cook your meals, clean your messes, and smile while you tell me I'm worthless. My place is to disappear so you can play hero. Is that it? The room went still. Brandon's face shifted from shock to fury in a heartbeat. Renee, but I wasn't done. My place is to pretend Harper isn't watching every single time you... That's when he stood. That's when his hand came up. The impact was instant. My head jerked to the side, the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. And then Harper's voice, steady, sharp cut through the silence. Daddy? Every head turned. You shouldn't have done that. Because now, Grandpa is going to see. The room went so quiet, you could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Brandon blinked at Harper like he wasn't sure he'd heard her right. What the hell are you talking about? He asked, his voice no longer sharp, but tight like a rope pulled too far. Harper hugged her iPad tighter. I've been recording you for 47 days, and I sent it all to Grandpa this morning. For a second, nobody moved. Then Phyllis let out a nervous laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, for heaven's sake, she's a child. She doesn't... I'm not lying, Harper interrupted. And Grandpa doesn't think it's funny. Brandon took a step toward her, and my body reacted before my brain could catch up. I pushed my chair back and stood, positioning myself between them. Brandon, I said quietly, stop. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You knew about this? No, I said. I didn't. It was a Tuesday night, mid-October. The kind of night in Wisconsin where the air smells like wood smoke and winter is already creeping in. Harper was at the kitchen table, coloring, or at least pretending to, while I sorted through a pile of unpaid bills. The bruise on my upper arm was new fingertip-shaped, courtesy of an argument over something ridiculous. I'd hidden it under my cardigan, even though we were alone. Mom, Harper said without looking up, do you think people can change? I hesitated, pen frozen over the checkbook. Sometimes, I said, why? Because you always tell me to be honest, but Daddy always says to keep family business private, and those can't both be right. The weight in my chest was almost unbearable. Sweetheart, there are different kinds of honesty. Sometimes, I've been recording him, she blurted out. My heart stopped. What? She glanced at me, eyes sharp and serious. Since September, when he yelled at you for dropping the laundry basket, I started saving videos. Harper, that's dangerous. Risky. Necessary. I'm careful, she said quickly. I only film when he's really mean. I hide my iPad so he doesn't see. I don't keep the videos here. I stopped. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. In my Google Drive, she said, Grandpa taught me how to use two-factor authentication so nobody can hack it. I sank into the chair across from her, trying to process what my 9-year-old was telling me. You told Grandpa? Not yet, she said, but I will. He always says, real family protects each other. Back in the present, Thanksgiving Day, Phyllis finally found her voice. Renee, control your child. I turned to her, and something inside me broke in just the right way. Control her? She's the only one in this house telling the truth. Brandon's face was an ugly mix of anger and panic. You're not sending anything to my father-in-law. Do you understand me? He said to Harper. She didn't flinch. Too late. Rick set down his fork. Wait, what's in those videos? You don't want to know, Harper said simply. I caught the quick flicker of discomfort on Rick's face. Maybe he did know. Maybe they all did, and just never cared. 3 days before Thanksgiving. Harper had been quiet all afternoon, which usually meant trouble. But when I peeked into her room, she was sitting cross-legged on the bed, iPad in her lap, earbuds in. What are you doing? I asked. Editing, she said. Editing what? Clips? I stepped into the room, heart pounding. Clips of what? She met my eyes, and I saw the steel there, the same look my father gets when he's decided something's non-negotiable. Of Daddy. I sat down beside her, and she handed me one of the earbuds. My breath caught. The video was grainy shot from her nightstand, but the audio was crystal clear. Brandon's voice, sharp and cruel, filled my ears. You can't do anything right, Renee. You make me look like a damn fool. Then a loud crash, the sound of the television remote hitting the wall. Harper, my voice cracked. I backed everything up to 3 places, she said matter-of-factly. My Google Drive, Grandpa's email, and Mrs. Willis. Mrs. Willis, her 4th grade teacher. You told your teacher? She noticed when I flinched last week, Harper said. I told her I was just tired, but she didn't believe me. She said if I ever needed help, she'd be there. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe through the rising tide of fear and relief. Grandpa's coming, Harper said now, her voice calm, but loud enough for the entire table to hear. He said to tell you that men who hit women are cowards. Brandon's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. You called him? No, Harper said. I emailed him with all the videos, and then he called me. Phyllis scoffed. Oh, please. What's he going to do, lecture us? Harper smiled. Small, cold, confident. You'll see. And I swear, for the first time in years, I felt the tiniest spark of hope. It started with a school project. Harper's class had been assigned to document family traditions with photos or videos. While most kids filmed pancake breakfasts or soccer games, Harper quietly started building her own archive. The first clip she showed me was from early October, Brandon standing in the doorway, blocking me from leaving the room while he accused me of flirting with the grocery store clerk. His voice was low, dangerous. The video ended when he slapped the bag of bread out of my hands. I was going to delete it, Harper admitted, but then I thought, what if he does worse next time? And nobody believes us? The fact that my 9-year-old had to think like that made me want to scream. But I didn't, because she was right. At the table, Mandy, the only non-relative besides me, looked pale. Brandon, if she really has videos, she doesn't, he snapped. I do, Harper said. Rick leaned back, suddenly very interested in the pattern on the ceiling. Lacey poured herself more wine. Phyllis tried again. Sweetheart, sometimes adults have disagreements. It's not a disagreement when you shove someone into the counter, Harper said evenly, or throw a coffee mug at their head. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Nobody spoke. I'd spent years shrinking, making myself small to survive. But right now, watching Harper hold her ground, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. I felt the urge to stand up, not just for her. For me, the faint crunch of tires on gravel broke the silence. Brandon's head snapped toward the window. Harper's smile widened, just slightly. He's here, she said. The crunch of tires on the driveway was followed by 2 car doors slamming in quick succession. Brandon's eyes narrowed. Who the hell? The knock on the front door wasn't really a knock. It was 3 sharp raps, the kind that say, I'm not here to make small talk. Before anyone could move, Harper slid her iPad onto the table, screen up. That's him. Phyllis frowned. That's who? The front door opened without waiting for an answer. The first thing you noticed about my father, Daniel Cole, wasn't his height, though. At 6'3", he filled the frame easily. It wasn't even his military bearing, though years as a command sergeant major in the U.S. Army had left him with posture that could shame a drill instructor. No, the first thing you noticed was his presence. The kind of presence that made you instinctively stand straighter, speak clearer, and question every bad decision you'd ever made. Dad. I started, but he'd already scanned the room in a sweep so fast and precise it felt tactical. His gaze landed on my cheek, still red from Brandon's hand. The muscle in his jaw flexed once. Then his eyes shifted to Harper, who was already standing, moving toward him without hesitation. You okay, Bug? He asked, voice gentler now. Harper nodded. I am now. He set a large hand on her shoulder, then looked back at Brandon. You. One word, flat and cold. Brandon tried for his charming laugh, the one he used at work parties when he wanted people to think he was just one of the guys. Daniel, this is a surprise, he said, as if my father had just dropped by for a backyard barbecue. We were just sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner. Dad cut him off with a single raised hand. Sit. Brandon bristled. Excuse me? I said. Sit. The command in my father's tone could have made a statue obey. Brandon sat. Rick muttered something under his breath, but one look from my father shut him up. 2 more men stepped into the house behind Dad. I recognized them both, Staff Sergeant Miller, one of his oldest friends from his Fort Benning days, and Captain Avery from the local JAG office. Both wore plain clothes, but everything about them screamed military discipline. Miller took up position just inside the door. Avery closed it quietly, his gaze never leaving Brandon. Phyllis was the first to break the silence. This is outrageous. Barging in here like you own the place, Mrs. Cole, Avery said politely but firmly. Please stay seated. This will go more smoothly if everyone stays where they are. Harper reached for her iPad, tapped a few times, and then handed it to my father. These are the ones from this month, she said. The rest are in the cloud. Dad set the iPad on the table, angling it toward Avery, who began scrolling without a word. The audio of Brandon's voice filled the room. Do you have any idea how stupid you look? God, Renee, you're pathetic. Then the sharp crash of something breaking. The video ended abruptly. The next clip showed Brandon shoving me against the fridge, his hand gripping my arm hard enough to leave fingerprints. My own voice, smaller, almost pleading, said, please, not in front of her. Avery didn't react outwardly, but his scrolling slowed. This is out of context, Brandon said, quickly, his voice climbing. You can't just... Dad slammed his palm onto the table, the sound making even Phyllis jump. 3 years, he said quietly. 3 years you've been putting your hands on my daughter. That's not... Brandon started. And you, Dad continued, turning his gaze to Phyllis, sat here and called her worthless while it happened. Phyllis's mouth opened, closed, opened again. We didn't... You knew, Harper said. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the steel in it. You all knew. You just didn't care. Avery pulled a folder from his bag and placed it in front of Brandon. Mr. Cole, He said formally, "You are hereby served with a temporary restraining order, effective immediately. You are to have no contact, direct or indirect, with your wife or daughter. You will vacate this property today." Brandon barked out a laugh that didn't hide the panic in his eyes. "You can't just kick me out of my own house." Avery's tone stayed even. Given the evidence of domestic violence, the judge granted temporary exclusive occupancy to your wife. "This is not a request." "This is bullshit," Brandon snapped, looking around the table for support. Rick avoided his gaze. Lacey took a long sip of wine. Phyllis just stared at the papers like they might catch fire. "You're ruining our family over a couple of arguments," Brandon said, turning back to me. "You think you're going to do better without me? You can't even keep a job." The old me might have dropped my gaze, might have swallowed the words burning in my throat. "Not this time. I'd rather live in a one-bedroom over a laundromat than spend one more night wondering if my husband is going to hit me because the chicken's overcooked." The room went still. Dad's eyes softened for a fraction of a second as he looked at me. Then he turned back to Brandon. "You have 1 hour to pack a bag and get off this property," he said. "You can arrange through your attorney to collect the rest of your belongings." Rick stood abruptly. "I'm not getting dragged into this. Mandy, let's go." Lacey followed, muttering something about not wanting to be on the wrong side of a police report. Phyllis stayed seated, staring at Brandon like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. "I told myself she was exaggerating," she said finally. "I told myself it wasn't my business, but those videos..." She shook her head. "Your father would be ashamed." Brandon's face twisted. "Don't start." But she was already standing. "I can't defend you in this. Not anymore." Brandon turned to Harper, maybe hoping to salvage something. "I'm still your father." Harper met his gaze evenly. "Fathers protect their family. You hurt yours." Her voice didn't waver. Not once. Miller escorted Brandon upstairs to pack a bag, while Avery stayed at the table with me and Dad, going over the protective order. "You'll have an emergency hearing in 2 weeks," Avery explained. "Given the evidence, the judge is likely to extend the order." I nodded, still trying to process the speed at which my life was changing. Harper leaned against my side. I put an arm around her, feeling the steady beat of her heart against my ribs. For the first time in years, I felt like we might actually be safe. When Brandon came back downstairs, duffel bags slung over one shoulder, Miller stayed half a step behind him. "You think you're going to win, Renee?" Brandon said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I didn't respond, didn't flinch, just watched as he walked out the door. Dad waited until the sound of the car engine faded before speaking. "Go pack a bag," he said gently. "Both of you. You're staying with me for now." As I moved through the house, grabbing clothes for Harper and me, it hit me how much of my life I'd spent in these rooms, careful, quiet, small. By the time we walked out the door, I felt taller. Not much, but enough. Dad locked the door behind us. Harper slipped her hand into mine. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said, squeezing her hand. "We did." That night, in the guest room at Dad's house, Harper fell asleep with her iPad on the nightstand. I sat beside her, listening to her breathing, and let the silence settle. It wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of freedom. And I planned to keep it that way. The morning after Thanksgiving felt like the first breath after breaking the surface. Dad Daniel Cole, my father, retired Command Sergeant Major, was already in the kitchen flipping pancakes like it was any other Friday. It wasn't. The house smelled like coffee and butter, the kind of cozy that used to make me ache with envy when I saw it in other people's homes. Today, it made me feel steady. Harper, my daughter, age 9, padded in wearing my old Badgers sweatshirt. She leaned into me without words, the way she has since she was a baby, forehead to ribs like a homing signal. I kissed the top of her head and poured syrup. "We've got a plan," Dad said simply, setting a plate in front of her. He didn't do false comfort. He did logistics. First, call from the district attorney's victim services. Second, consult with a family law attorney. Third, police standby to collect essential paperwork from the house. Fourth, locks and security. Fifth, Harper added, mouthful, Therapy. I looked at her and swallowed. Fifth, I said. Therapy. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then it buzzed again. Mrs. Willis, Harper's fourth grade teacher. I answered. Renee, she said, voice warm, firm. I filed a report with Child Protective Services last night. I should have told you earlier that I'd noticed some things. They'll contact you today. Don't panic. They're there to support, not remove. My stomach nodded and then released. Thank you, I said, and meant it. And Harper? Mrs. Willis added. You're brave, kiddo. Harper smiled, small and fierce. By 9 a.m., Kathy Nguyen, domestic violence advocate from Willow House Shelter, sat at Dad's dining table with a legal pad and a gentle gaze that made me want to cry and also get things done. Will's safety plan, she said. P.O. box, separate bank account, credit freeze, notify school about the restraining order. I'll connect you with Dr. Lauren Engel, child psychologist, for trauma-informed counseling, and I can sit with you at the hearing. Hearing? I asked. Temporary restraining order is in place, she said. Tapping the paper, Captain Avery, JAG officer, and Dad's friend had served it last night. But the court sets a full hearing, usually within 14 days. We'll prep? She looked at Harper. You did everything right. Harper straightened. Thank you. At 10:30, we drove to Waukesha County Courthouse and met Maya Patel, family law attorney, in a suit that said she slept fine, and I absolutely did not. I'm here for the long haul, she said, shaking my hand. Protective order, temporary custody, support, then the divorce when you're ready. She flicked through pages like a card shark. Your father sent me the folder. The videos will speak for themselves. We'll also pull your urgent care records from that night. In May, you told them you fell down the stairs. I stared. How did you... It's in your patient portal, she said gently. Kathy got your consent. It's what advocates do. My shame burned, then cooled. Okay. Maya leaned in. This is not your shame to carry. Dad. Silent until now. Exhaled. Harper slipped her hand into mine. By noon, Officer Ruiz, City Police, met us at our house for a civil standby. I hadn't stepped onto that porch since last night. The brass kickplate on the door flashed in the weak sun. Everything felt too bright. He's not here, Officer Ruiz said after a quick sweep. You've got 30 minutes. Essentials only. I moved fast. Birth certificates, social security cards, passports, the tiny safe from my closet with a handful of old savings bonds my grandmother left me, Harper's stuffed otter from her bed. She hugged it like he might stop breathing without her. In the kitchen, I opened the junk drawer where Brandon kept the spare keys and found a small flash drive labeled taxes. I slipped it in my pocket. Might be nothing, might be everything. Back in the car, my hands finally shook. Dad watched me, eyes soft but vigilant, like I was both grown woman and soldier, fresh off a bad patrol. I guess I was. That evening, Dr. Engel, child psychologist, called. I can see Harper Monday after school, she said. And you Wednesday, if you're willing. I am, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Harper looked up from her iPad and gave me a thumbs up. Tell her I said hi, Harper called, grinning when Dr. Engel laughed through the phone. The kid had already memorized the plan and decided it was ours. 2 days later, the CPS, social worker, Mr. Amos Green, child welfare investigator, came by Dad's house. He sat on the edge of the sofa, shoes neatly aligned, hands open. We're assessing safety, he said calmly. You leaving the home, obtaining an order, and engaging support services are all protective factors. We want to help. Harper answered direct questions with all the gravity of a little judge. I feel safer here. I have my own room. Mom and Grandpa listen. I don't want to see Brandon. I know he's my biological father, but I prefer Brandon. I flinched at the name. Mr. Green nodded, jotting notes. We'll recommend continued services and that any visitation be supervised by a professional center, if ordered. Thank you, I said, meaning it again. The hearing notice came by email. The 8th of December, 9 a.m., Branch 3, Honorable Claire Jensen presiding. My stomach dropped and then held. The week in between was a montage of paperwork, passwords, and small mercies. Dad changed my phone plan into my name. Kathy sat with me on hold for 40 minutes while a bank rep removed Brandon's access from our joint account and opened a new one just for me. We bought a cheap printer and turned Dad's den into a command center, labeled folders, sticky notes, a whiteboard with dates. Harper started at Dr. Engel's office Monday. The waiting room had fidget toys and a fish tank with one bossy goldfish. I like her, Harper announced after climbing into the back seat. She doesn't talk to me like I'm fragile. She asked what my 3 safe places are. I said, Grandpa's house, the library, and the bench at the park with the ugly duck statue. What makes them safe, I asked. She considered. Quiet, rules, and nobody yelling. I swallowed hard and nodded. Wednesday was my turn. I sat on Dr. Engel's gray couch and told the truth out loud like I hadn't done in years. She didn't flinch when I described the way Brandon's hand looked when it rose, how a muscle in his forearm jumped first, right below the watch band. She gave that a name-somatic cue and put it in a box labeled, Not Your Fault. You've been in survival mode a long time, she said. Now we widen your window. Safety, control, choice. Choice. The word felt decadent and right. On Thursday, I got an email from Davis Family Clinic, where I'd interviewed months ago before Brandon tanked it behind my back. We'd like to offer you 20 hours a week at the front desk, it read. Your references speak highly of your calm under pressure. I laughed out loud, an undignified, delighted bark. Calm under pressure. I'd survived a war zone with nice curtains. I accepted before I could talk myself out of it. Friday night, Dad installed a smart doorbell at my house and scheduled new deadbolts for Monday. We'll go back once the order's extended, he said. No earlier. I slept like a rock for the first time in months. The morning of the hearing dawned brittle and blue. I wore navy slacks and the soft sweater Mom bought me before she died, a subtle armor no one could see. Harper insisted on coming until Maya gently explained she didn't have to testify today. It's a lot for a kid, Maya said. Let her wait with Kathy outside. If the judge wants to hear from her, they'll do it in chambers, not open court. Harper didn't love it, but agreed, because she was practical and because she trusted the plan. Branch 3 smelled like coffee and floor polish. The clerk, kind eyes over a mask, called our case. Brandon sat at the respondent's table with Mr. Grant, his attorney, a man with an expensive tie and the weary air of someone used to cleaning up messes he didn't make. Judge Claire Jensen, family court judge, took the bench. Her gaze swept the courtroom, taking us in like dots on a map. Good morning, this is Cole v. Cole, petition for injunction domestic abuse and related temporary orders. Appearances? Maya stood. Maya Patel. For the petitioner, Renee Cole. Mr. Grant rose. Daniel Grant for the respondent, Brandon Cole. Judge Jensen nodded. Miss Patel, you may proceed. Maya started crisp and sparing. Your Honor, the petitioner seeks a domestic abuse injunction, exclusive occupancy of the marital home, temporary sole legal and physical custody of minor child Harper Cole, supervised visitation for the respondent, firearms surrender, and temporary support. For good cause, 3 years of escalating verbal and physical abuse, corroborated by medical records, a mandated reporter's statement, a CPS safety plan, and 47 days of authenticated video clips. Mr. Grant shifted. The judge's eyebrows lifted almost imperceptibly. 47? Maya turned the iPad toward the bench. We've provided exhibits digitally to the clerk, but I'd like to play 3 short clips, Your Honor. We heard my voice. His voice. The crash. The slap. The breathless. Please. Not in front of her. I watched the judge's jaw tighten, then relax. The practiced neutrality of someone who has seen too much and still insists on seeing clearly. Mr. Grant stood when the last clip ended. Your Honor, context matters. These were arguments. My client denies physical abuse and asserts Mrs. Cole is weaponizing family disagreements to alienate their child. He has no criminal record. He's willing to attend counseling. He's a provider. Maya didn't take the bait. Domestic violence does not require a criminal conviction, she said. It requires the truth. The respondent's status as wage earner does not immunize him from the consequences of his conduct. The child's teacher, Mrs. Willis, mandated reporter, has submitted a statement noting concerning behaviors and a report to CPS. Mr. Green, CPS, confirms a safety plan is in place. Officer Ruiz Police completed a civil standby due to safety concerns. And Dr. Engel, child psychologist, recommends trauma-informed therapy for Harper and a no-contact order except supervised visitation at Family Connection Center. Judge Jensen turned to me. Mrs. Cole, do you wish to testify? Yes, Your Honor. I stood. My knees didn't shake. I told the truth, the feeling of stepping around a sleeping bear every day, the 4 ER visits coded as falls, the time he smashed the remote and it grazed my temple, the way Harper had started sleeping with her door locked at 9 years old. I said the word fear and didn't apologize for it. Mr. Grant cross-examined, polite but insistent. You never called 911? No, I said. I didn't think anyone would believe me. I barely believed me. You shared a bank account? He insisted on it, I said. I didn't have my own cards. Kathy and I have changed that. You told medical staff you fell? Yes, I said. I was ashamed. That's common in abuse survivors. He blinked, regrouped. And your father, Mr. Cole, Daniel, a retired command sergeant major, arrived at your home with 2 other military men and served my client with papers? Maya rose. Objection mischaracterizes. The restraining order was properly issued and served. Sustained? Judge Jensen said mildly, then looked back at me. Mrs. Cole, do you feel safe if the respondent remains in the home? Do you feel safe if he has unsupervised contact with Harper? The judge leaned back. The courtroom hummed with muted HVAC and fear. The court finds sufficient evidence by a preponderance that the respondent has engaged in domestic abuse as defined by statute, she said finally. The temporary restraining order is extended as a 4-year injunction. The petitioner is granted exclusive occupancy of the marital home. The respondent will surrender any firearms today to law enforcement. Temporary sole legal and physical custody of Harper Cole to the petitioner. Supervised visitation only, twice weekly, at Family Connection Center, scheduled to be arranged. The respondent will pay temporary child support and temporary maintenance in amounts to be set by the commissioner. No direct or third-party contact outside of the visitation center. Violation will result in arrest. Mr. Grant opened his mouth. The judge lifted a hand. Mr. Cole, you will attend a certified batterer's intervention program if you hope to modify visitation. Court is adjourned. The gavel's soft rap felt like a door unlocking somewhere I'd forgotten existed. Outside, Harper launched herself into my arms so hard we staggered. Kathy steadied us, laughing and crying at once. 4 years, Harper said into my sweater. 4 whole years. It's a start, I said, voice thick. It's a really good start. Dad put a hand on my shoulder, the weight of it exactly right. Let's go home, he said. Your home. We drove straight to the locksmith. By dusk, the house sounded different, new bolts clicking, the doorbell chiming, the quiet hum of a basic alarm system. I stood in the living room and breathed. The air felt bigger. Harper did a lap like an inspector, then dropped onto the sofa with her otter. We need a pizza, she declared. A victory pizza. I ordered a large pepperoni, like we were the most ordinary family in Wisconsin. Maybe we were... When the box hit, the coffee table grease soaking into the cardboard, steam fogging the lid, Harper folded a slice in half, the way Dad taught her, and grinned. Next week, she said, can we decorate for Christmas? Like, obnoxiously? I want the yard reindeer. Deal, I said. We're going full obnoxious. After she went to bed, I stood at the kitchen sink with a mug of tea and looked at the moon through the window. The house made its small night noises, heat kicking on, a vent clanking somewhere, the soft rattle of the smart doorbell settling. I put my hand on the counter where he'd slammed his palm so many times and waited for the old panic. It didn't come. Something else did quiet and choice, and the first flicker of a future that belonged to me. My phone buzzed. A text from Davis Family Clinic with my start date and a not-so-small note. We're proud to have you. I leaned my forehead against the cool cabinet and smiled into the dark. From the hallway, Dad's voice, low. You good, kid? I turned. Yeah, I said. I'm good. And for once, I wasn't lying. The first Monday after the hearing, I walked into Davis Family Clinic in a navy blouse and black slacks that I'd ironed twice just to feel ready. The receptionist desk sat under a skylight, sunlight pooling across a counter decorated with a small succulent and a jar of pens. Renee, right? Asked Gloria Marks, office manager, a woman in her 60s with a silver bob and the efficiency of someone who could run a small country. Welcome aboard. We'll start you with patient intake training. You'll be fine. Fine felt almost luxurious after the last few years. By lunchtime, I'd learned the phone system, the appointment software, and the coffee preferences of 3 nurses. I caught myself smiling without realizing it. That had been happening more lately. At 3:15, Dad picked up Harper from school and brought her to the clinic so we could head home together. She bounded in wearing her puffy purple jacket and clutching a paperback. How was therapy? I asked as we walked to the car. Good, she said. Dr. Engel asked me to draw what safe feels like. I drew Grandpa's porch with the swing and the yellow mums. That's a good one, I said. She also said I'm allowed to have feelings about Brandon without feeling bad. So I said I don't miss him, not even a little. Her voice was matter of fact, but her hand found mine anyway. I squeezed back. The following Saturday was Brandon's first supervised visitation at Family Connection Center, a brick building tucked between a laundromat and a credit union. Maya had warned me, keep expectations low. The visits are for the child, not the parent. Kathy from Willow House met us in the lobby. You don't have to see him, she reminded me. Staff will take Harper in and bring her back out. I nodded, but my stomach was lead. Harper stood beside me, coat zipped to her chin. 2 hours, right? Right, I said. You can end early if you want. She considered this, then nodded. Okay. A center worker named Julie came to escort her. Hi, Harper, you can bring your book. There's a quiet room if you'd like. I watched her disappear down the hall, then went to the cafe across the street with Kathy. I couldn't drink my coffee. At exactly 4 p.m., Harper walked back into the lobby, head high. How was it? I asked. She shrugged. He asked about school. I told him about the science fair. He said he was proud of me. That's good, I said carefully. Then he asked if we could be a family again, she added. I told him we already are. Me, you, Grandpa. Kathy's eyebrows went up. That's a solid answer. Harper grinned faintly. He didn't like it. Over the next month, life started to feel like something we were building instead of just surviving. Dad hung Christmas lights the first weekend in December, Harper directing from the lawn like a foreman. I baked gingerbread for the first time in years, the kitchen smelling like cinnamon and clove instead of fear. At the clinic, Gloria gave me my first full-time week in January. You're good with people, she said, even the cranky ones. I started a savings account. It wasn't much, $300 by New Year's, but it was mine. One snowy Thursday night, Harper and I were in the living room with hot cocoa when she said, Mom, do you think Brandon will change? The question landed heavy between us. I think people can change, I said slowly, but only if they want to, and only if they work hard at it. Do you think he wants to? I looked at her, this kid who'd faced down her own father with nothing but an iPad and the truth. I think he wants the benefits of changing without the work. That's not the same thing. She nodded, satisfied. Then I don't have to feel bad about not wanting to see him more. No, I said. You don't. In late January, Harper came home from school unusually quiet. At dinner, she said, Mom, can I tell you something? And you promise not to freak out? My fork paused halfway to my mouth. I'll try. My friend, Lily, her stepdad, yells a lot. She says her mom cries in the bathroom sometimes. I put my fork down. Did you tell a teacher? She's scared, Harper said. I told her about Dr. Engel, and I gave her my old iPad, the one with the camera that works really good. He blinked. You did? She knows how to hide videos, Harper said. I told her she has to be careful. Part of me wanted to tell her she was too young to shoulder that. The other part, the part that remembered the night she first showed me her recordings, knew that sometimes kids protect each other when adults fail. "You're a good friend," I said. "Let's also tell Mrs. Willis, okay?" "Okay," she said, relief in her voice. February's visitation came with a twist. Brandon had completed his intake for the court-ordered batterers intervention program. His lawyer filed a motion to expand visits to unsupervised afternoons. Maya called me into her office. "The judge hasn't ruled yet, but we'll argue against it." Dr. Engel's letter supports maintaining supervision. The hearing was brief but tense. Brandon wore a suit that didn't hide the weight he'd lost. His eyes flicked to Harper in the gallery, but she didn't look back. Judge Jensen listened, reviewed the counselor's notes, and denied the motion. Given the child's stated lack of comfort and the recency of intervention, supervised visits will remain. Brandon's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Outside, Harper exhaled audibly. "Good," she said. By March, I decided to sell the marital home. It had been sitting empty since December, Dad checking it weekly. Every time I walked in, the walls felt like they were holding their breath. I listed it with Carla James, local realtor, who walked through with a clipboard. "It's a solid house," she said. "We'll stage it to feel fresh." When it sold in April, the proceeds paid off debts I didn't realize Brandon had racked up. What was left went into my savings account. Watching that balance jump felt like oxygen. In May, Harper's class held a small ceremony for finishing 4th grade. She stood in a navy dress, reading a poem she'd written about home. "Home is where the light stays on, where voices don't make you small, where the walls are strong but the doors are open, where you can sleep without listening for footsteps." I clapped until my hands ached. That night, after Harper was asleep, I sat with Dad on the porch. "You've been quiet," he said. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," I admitted, like he's going to find a way to get back in. Dad's gaze was steady. That's the thing about people like him. They want you to believe they have that power. But every day you live without him, you're proving they don't. I nodded, the truth of it settling somewhere deep. In early June, Willow House asked if I'd speak at their annual fundraiser. "Your story could help other women see a path out," Kathy said. Public speaking used to terrify me. But I thought about the woman I'd been last Thanksgiving, and the one I was now. "I'll do it," I said. The night of the event, I stood at a podium in a room full of strangers and told the truth. I talked about the slap at the dinner table, Harper's recordings, my father at the door. I ended with, "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone see what's happening and ask for help." When I stepped down, 3 women hugged me with tears in their eyes. One pressed a business card into my hand. "Call me if you ever want a job in outreach," she said. By Thanksgiving the following year, the house was full again, but this time with people I chose. Dad, Harper, Gloria from the clinic, Kathy and her partner, even Mrs. Willis. We ate too much pie and argued over whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie. Harper sat beside me, her plate piled with mashed potatoes. "This is better," she said quietly. "What is Thanksgiving? No pretending, no waiting for something bad to happen." I smiled. "Yeah, this is better." Later that night, after everyone left, Harper and I stood by the bay window, looking out at the yard where the lights twinkled. "You think he'll ever come here again?" she asked. "No," I said. "And if he does, he'll see we're not afraid." She nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because we've got a good thing now." We did. We had safety. We had choice. And for the first time in a long time, we had a future that felt wide open.